So we received some comments on our video about the October Revolution, saying that while October may have been fine, Lenin immediately afterwards dissolved the Soviets and implemented a one-party dictatorship. So let's get into it. Did Lenin ever dissolve the Soviets? No, this is simply a lie. What these comments are actually referring to is the dissolution of the Constituent Assembly. And yes, the Bolsheviks did dissolve the Constituent Assembly in December 1917, but the main reason for this was that the masses did not care about it anymore. This demand was important to the masses in the past when the Tsar was still in power. It was essentially a demand for democracy against absolutism. In October, they did achieve democracy through the Soviets. And this was a higher form of democracy than any bourgeois parliament, because instead of just voting once every 4 years, regular people actually controlled society through the Soviets. However, the Bolsheviks did still choose to convene the Constituent Assembly. They recognized that there were certain layers who had not participated directly in the revolution, had not yet grasped what Soviet power meant, who did still want a Constituent Assembly. When this assembly actually met, it completely failed to express the will of the masses. The Social Revolutionary Party, which won a majority in the assembly, actually did not exist as such anymore. The list of parties for elections was drawn up before the SRs split over the question of Soviet power, with the lefts being for and the right being against. But their appearance as just one party on the ballot meant it was impossible for anyone to vote for the left SRs even if they wanted to, and therefore mostly right SRs got in. Then, almost half the delegates just didn't show up. The assembly refused to endorse fundamental decrees of the Soviets and demanded that their power be recognized instead. They wanted to rip out of the hands of the masses the democracy that they had just fought for and won. Those most invested in the assembly after October were counter-revolutionaries who were preparing to drown the revolution in blood. That is why the assembly was dissolved. When it was, there was no outcry, no protest from any layer of the masses. The whole debacle just proved to them that Soviet power was the only legitimate power. It was through the Soviets that Russia was withdrawing from the war, that land was being given to the peasants, that the masses were actually taking control. Now finally, did Lenin implement a one-party system? People argue that he paved the way for Stalin and all the crimes of his regime. Lenin did no such thing. After the revolution, all parties were allowed to operate freely, to openly criticize the Bolsheviks. But in 1918, the old Russian ruling class unleashed a brutal civil war and 21 imperialist armies invaded to help them crush the revolution. What did all the other parties do at this point? All of them collaborated with the White Army. Even the left SRs shot Lenin. These people were fighting to bring back the re-enslavement of the masses, and that is why their parties were banned. But even then, Lenin was very clear that this was meant to be a temporary measure in the context of civil war. He never wanted nor decreed a one-party system. But to simply let the parties of counter-revolution operate freely while the masses were fighting for their lives would have been ludicrous. No government at war, today or ever, would give political freedom to the parties calling for their murder and overthrow. So why is this demanded only of the Bolsheviks? Because of what I said in the last video. The Bolsheviks led the masses to victory, and for that, the ruling class will never forgive them.